Hey guys, Vol here again. Welcome to Game 2 of the Fluffycon 2011 tournament in Auckland, New Zealand, Kohimarama ASB Stadium. And round 2 features the mission Meeting Engagement, which is the diagonal mission, as many people call it. My opponent is Joran, who is a guy that I've played many times before. You've seen him in many of my battle reports. And up leading into this Fluffycon tournament, the soft tournament for 2,000 points, Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition, we have played about 4 practice games, and I managed to lose one of them, win one of them. I think one of them was a draw. I can't remember what the result of the other one was. But, yeah, just seeing him in round 2, a bit of a familiar face, a bit of a relief that I'm not facing against one of the really tough lists. Joran actually received the maximum bonus score for the softness of his list. He's taken Orcs and Goblins, and he's taken no magic items at all. He's got 1 war machine. He's got lots of big blocks of troops, of maybe goblins and orcs. He's got a single fanatic and a level 2 orc shaman and some ball boys, pump wagon. That's pretty much it. So he's really the underdog in this matchup. He's got a softer list than I have. He's won the roll-off to depict the table quarter, and he's also deployed his unit, his troops first. He's rolled a 1 for reserves on his Arrow Boys, Goblin Wolf Riders, and Shaman. I've rolled a 1 only for my Pistoliers and a unit of 20 Swordsmen with a detachment of 10 Handgunners, and that's it. I've deployed very aggressively, knowing that my Knights really are going to be the key factor of this matchup. My troops can really slog it out with his, but not really his Orc units, his large Orc units. He's got 1 very big unit of hand weapon shield Orcs and 1 medium-sized unit of double chopper Orcs. And of course his ball boy is going to be a bit of a problem, but I'm feeling like I can actually redirect his ball boys quite well with my pistoliers if necessary. Unfortunately, Joran deploying very defensively here against me. I think there are a few psychological factors in here. Joran's not won many games against me in practice and knows that his list isn't as powerful as mine. So he's really trying to, I think, rely on the timing of his reserves to come on, maybe his war machine doing well, maybe some magic interfering with the play to beat me. So that's what's going on here. Next photo just shows you a bit more of a close-up of the battlefield. I've got some crossbows in the field on the hill here, and crucially, there's a forest in the middle of the battlefield. And you guys might remember this terrain. It was actually supplied by me for the tournament, so it's quite ironic that I'm playing against my most played against practice partner on my own terrain in the actual tournament event. But a feature of this battlefield is the forest in the middle, and if I move my troops into that forest, it means that I don't get ranks, so I'm very cautious about that. I'm really keeping my infantry in the centre because I'm expecting my 2 flanks to do very well and hopefully move around. And if he decides to come straight at me, his orcs will lose their ranks by going into the forest, and I can take advantage of that. But if he's cowering away and my flanks are beating his flanks, then in the last half of the game I can move through the forest and engage him. Next photo, his ball boy's looking pretty cool. Just by the way, guys, in New Zealand we haven't actually started using the new list. I'm not actually sure if it's out yet. The new Orc and Goblin book has probably been leaked, rumours about it. I'm not sure if it's released in stores or whatever at this time, but at any rate, for the tournament purpose, we're using the previous edition list. I heard that ball boys are getting some new rules, new stats and things, but that remains to be seen. Joran's done a lot of work in his army, so commending him for that. Really looking pretty good. Next photo, in fact, just speaking of looking good, I've taken a close-up picture of this unit because I'm really impressed by it. I talked to him about how he'd actually done this, and as you can see, this is a couple of editions ago, the goblin models, the plastic goblins from the starter kit you got back in the day when I was like 12 years old, you know, the High Elves versus Goblins starter pack that you got. This features a blister pack of a command group, a champion, musician, and a standard bearer. And tons of guys. There's about 30 goblins here, and the shields just look magnificent. And I'd asked him how he'd done this, and he'd actually told me he'd got some sort of like a nail stencil where, like, if you were painting your nails, like I guess girls do, Sorry about the potentially sexist comment there for you girls that watch the battle reports. I know there's a couple of you. But he's used these stencils to put the spiders on the shields of the goblins after he's actually done quite a nice little background paint job, and it just looks fantastic. I'm sure you guys agree that the goblins just really look the part, and I love the banner as well. It ties in with the shields. It's just brilliant, and he's done plenty of highlighting on the goblins. It's just really awesome stuff. Next photo, his orcs have gone first, and that means him bringing on the Arrow boys in reserve behind the goblins, and he's got a level 2 Orc Shaman joining them as well, also coming on from reserve. He cast Warpath, Gork's Warpath, in the first turn, stomping on some knights, then onto another unit, and then onto another unit. So 3 units in a row, but he rolled very badly for the amount of damage he caused, and unfortunately he actually miscast in the process, and rolling a 7 on the Orc and Goblin miscast table meant that he forgot the spell, so that's a bit of relief. Him not actually doing any damage to my guys, really, and losing that spell, so that's quite fortunate. Next photo, my following turn, I bring in my units on reserve, and that includes 2 infantry units and some pistoliers, one of those infantry units being a detachment. My turn, just moving up, creeping in, and hoping to just really obliterate that pump wagon with my guns. I've got enough shooting to do it, and then use my cannon to knock off his war machine and other units. He's hit the Flaggellants straight away with his rock lobber, as he did in every single one of his practice games, and killed like 12 guys or 8 guys or whatever it was. But in my turn, a bit of swift vengeance with a cannon, blowing away the rock lobber and actually hitting the chariot behind it, unfortunately located, and doing several wounds on it. Next image, my knights are moving onto the hill here, and I carefully measured it so that the knights were, 13 inches away from the orcs, meaning that the orcs would need a 9, an unlikely number to reach the knights, but the knights would need only a much lower number, at like a 7 on 3 dice, picking the 2 highest to hit the orcs. So that's the plan here, also giving me a plus 1 bonus for charging downhill. The Halberdiers and Handgunners have been reduced, and that was actually in his magic phase. When he got Warpath off, he initially chose the knights, then the cannon, not doing any damage on them, and then when he had some more rolls, he actually went to my detachments, which I feel was a mistake from him, a bit of a mistake under pressure, and really attacking units with his spell, which didn't really affect the game that much and weren't very valuable. But I've turned the Halberdiers around facing the left-hand side of the photo, because there's actually a unit of wolf riders hanging around there, and I'm trying to tempt him to charge the Halberdiers, because if he carries on around, he'll eventually hit my my volley gun, and I want to my Hellstorm rocket battery. I want to avoid that. Next image, despite needing a 9 to charge the knights on the hill, he rolls like an 11 for the charge distance of his orcs with double choppers. Fortunately for me, however, even though he had tons and tons of attacks with his orcs, needing 3s to wound, I passed all of my armor saves, 2-ups, didn't roll a single one, and of course clobbered him with the Warrior Priest and Hatred Knights, and actually laying some swift justice down on the enemies of the Empire, and running him down, capturing a banner. So that's a big advantage to me straight off the bat, crumbling that flank and putting the knights into a position where they can really do some serious damage. Next photo, his ball boys moving across the battlefield, but really taking the long way around, not wanting to hit him behind the pump wagon because there's so many guns aimed at him at that point in time. So unfortunately he's being a little bit cautious here, and that's going to cause him to waste a lot of time and giving me extra turns to get into better and better positions and shoot at him more and more times. He's also got his Night Goblins with the single fanatic on the hill, nets ready. Next image, the plan here was very was really the critical point of the game. The knights, having just destroyed his unit of chopper boys, and it being my turn, had an opportunity to charge his arrow boys with the shaman in it right next to the board, who had come in as reserves, but they were very nearby to his main orc unit with the 2 combat characters in it. Interestingly enough, in my first turn, I fired the rocket battery at his main group of orcs, killing like 14 of them. It just slammed into them, arms and legs flying, green blood splattering everywhere, the orcs demolished, and the effect of that happening caused him to make the decision of turning the orcs around and moving them behind the goblins, staying out of trouble, and anticipating the knights, trying to help in that side of the field. Now what I did was I attempted to charge the knights at his arrow boys, And knowing that I was going to be able to beat them in combat and pursue off the board, he opted to flee with them, forcing me to redirect my charge with the knights or leave them out in the open, allowing him a flank charge with his orcs. However, what I did instead was pass my redirect check and charge into the flank of the goblins, along with the swordsman unit featuring the BSB and the general. The plan here was that if I could kill enough goblins to reduce his number so much that he lost steadfast, that would mean that my swordsmen would be able to overrun, potentially hitting the orcs, or alternatively the knights actually overrunning into the orcs, given the position of where the goblins would be fleeing to. So quite critical stuff here. Next photo, what actually happened, just looking at the next picture as you can see here, is that I did kill enough goblins, wiped his goblins out. The swordsman rolled high enough to hit the orcs, so did the knights. I chose to move in first with the knights with the pursuit roll, and the knights charged the orcs and engaged in new combat with a charge in his following turn, even with his combat characters there. So really decisive turn of events for me. Going to the next photo, we've skipped a couple of turns ahead, and I've actually destroyed his next orc unit with both the general and the BSB, and I've got his entire army surrounded. So army really in check at this point. He's got a fanatic in that unit, but he's rolled a 1 for animosity. Next image, his boar boys are still moving around this forest. I've got him really in a good position here where the pistoliers have moved to the forest without marching, mind you. We've rolled for the mysterious terrain, and it turns out to be a normal forest with a roll of a 1. And just picking at him with shots left and right, picking off orcs, trying to force a panic check. And he failed his charge in his second to last turn, and I think squabbled in his final turn, so really just nothing he could do there. Going to the next photo, the swordsmen have attacked the night goblins, and they're just chopping through as many ranks as they can. The fanatic's been unleashed, killing like 1 knight, and that knight unit in the background has captured about 3 banners and just chasing the chariot around behind the building. So that's it, guys. A really decisive victory for the Empire in Game 2. Managed to claw back my bad dice rolling in Game 1 with some better dice rolling in Game 2. And unfortunately, my opponent here making a few little errors, but just generally a tough matchup for him. Really, my army was harder than his, so he shouldn't really feel too bad about losing this matchup, especially with me having some reasonably good luck with my army. And that's it, guys. Look forward to Game 3 coming up. We'll see what happens in the final round of the Day 1.